what advice would you give to someone who's like right there at the door, who knows what they want to do, but is afraid to take that first step?
Do it scared. Do it scared. I mean, it's one of those things where we always will find evidence in the things we believe. And so if I'm going to say, you know what, I don't know that I'm ready, I don't know that I'm prepared, I don't know that now is the right time, I'm going to find evidence that supports all of those thoughts that I have. And we have to remember that when we take action, confidence and motivation tends to follow. We think it's the other way around. We think I have to be confident, I have to be motivated, then I can go. And I'm saying, no, take action, just go. And you're going to gain confidence and motivation beyond that. So staying in the same vein of faith, this is like saying, hey, God, show me and I'll trust you. And he's saying, no, trust me and I'll show you. And this is where it's like, you know what, take action, just do it. Just take that step and then take the next step and then take the next step. Too many of us are focused on the end in mind and not the steps that it takes in order to get here. And we get overwhelmed and we find all the reasons why we shouldn't take that step. So I'd say just do it scared.
Well, dude, thank you so much for taking some time to be with us on the Pet Waste Millionaire podcast. I saw you had a guest on your podcast recently, Chip Baker, who is a friend of ours. And immediately I was like, oh, if Chip was on his podcast, I'm sure he's awesome. So I sent you a quick message and we connected and were able to schedule you getting to spend some time with us. So thank you again. Josh, would you mind just explaining for our listeners a little bit about yourself and what it is that you do and the type of impact that you want to have in your community?
I'd be happy to, Ben, EJ. Thank you guys both for having me. It's an honor to be on, and I agree. Chip is an amazing guy, and so I was really delighted when you reached out to me and we struck up this conversation. So, yeah, my name is Josh Parnell, and I'm a leadership coach, trainer, and speaker. And so, the bulk of my business is one-on-one coaching. So I work with a lot of small business owners and some executive level, C-suite level team members who are formally leading people. And so a lot of what I do is I work with people on how to lead people. We see a lot of high-performing team members who do really well at the jobs that they do, who get promoted into a formal leadership role, and that's like going from a player to a coach. But a lot of us struggle to stay in the coach's seat. And so what happens is we're in the coach's seat and we see our team members doing these processes that we've mastered that got us here to begin with. And we go back out of the coach's seat and say, hey, watch out, guys, I'm going to do it for you. I don't have time to teach you. I'm just going to show you how to do it. And this is the old adage of give a man to fish and he'll eat for a day, or teach a man to fish and he'll eat for a lifetime. And so what I do is I teach people how to teach their team how to fish, how to lead, how to coach, how to train, and how to manage. All four of those are necessary, but all four are done different. And so that's the bulk of my coaching. I do training programs as well. I do about one per quarter, and I do speaking engagements as well. Just released my first book called Leading a Legacy, How to Live Today to Make an Impact for Tomorrow. This got released in late January. And I have my own podcast as well called the Josh Parnell Leadership Podcast. But I'll tell you both, guys, I love what I do. I'm very passionate about what I do. I think Steve Harvey was quoted as saying, your career is what you're paid for, but your calling is what you're made for. And I don't know if this is my calling, but it certainly feels like it sometimes. And so really, really enjoy what I'm doing. I'm really honored to be on your show today.
That's awesome.
Well, when you wake up every day passionate, that's when you kind of know, right, that it's your calling, when you're passionate or working towards something that you're passionate about. So tell me, Josh, how did you get your start in this? Like, how did you build up? How did you build up to this and to where you're at now? What's your background? Where'd you get started?
Sure. So, I went to University of North Texas in Denton for about a year and a half, and planned on being there for 4 years. But after about a year and a half, UNT said, "Hey, Josh, thanks for playing, but your grades are terrible. You need to leave." And so I had some growing up to do pretty quickly, and this was around the time that 9/11 happened, and it got me thinking about joining the military. And so I had a strong interest in filmmaking way back when. This is over 20 years ago. And I found out that videography was a career field I could do in the Air Force. So I went to my nearest Air Force recruiter's office. And long story short, I'm not going to tell you the whole story. In fact, if you want to read it, it's in my book, Chapter 1, Leading Legacy. But I will say this. I joined the Air Force expecting to be a videographer. That's not the path that God had planned for me. Instead, I went into a 4-year enlistment into security forces. But I really enjoyed that experience. It was necessary for me in the path that I eventually went on. And so did a 4-year enlistment and got my degree after the Air Force, went to the oil and gas industry for about 5 years, and then found my way to an amazing company called Christian Brothers Automotive. And I worked as a corporate trainer and corporate coach for almost a decade. And our team created and facilitated training programs that really focused on sales, service, really, the guest experience, workflow management, phone skills, and eventually really found my niche as a leadership trainer and leadership coach there. And so was able to create a leadership development program and eventually took over as the host of a leadership podcast that a good friend of mine initially created. And the last 3 years or so I was there was really focused on not only leadership as a whole, but also growth personally and professionally in myself. I finally started really investing in myself. And I think that if there's any unsolicited advice I could give to anyone, I'm always going to say that the greatest investment any of us can make is in ourselves. And so I hired a counselor years ago and very quickly realized my mindset went from, I don't know that I can afford this because I wasn't making this a part of my budget to very soon after realizing I can't not afford this. What counseling was doing for me was really helping me shift my perspective. And with perspective, the way that we view things drives the way that we do things. So I hired a counselor, and then shortly thereafter started attending different seminars and conventions and hired a coach eventually. And so fast forward to about a year ago, I eventually took a step of faith into this terrifying world of entrepreneurship as a leadership coach, trainer, and speaker. And still to this day, I work with my own counselor once a month. I work with my own coach twice a month. And I'm married to a licensed professional counselor. So I get free counseling even when I don't want it, which probably quite often. But we all need it. And so that's what I'm doing today, and absolutely love what I do.
Man, that's awesome. So your journey went from military to professional corporate world and in the franchise industry, correct? You were leading,
correct.
You were working on training systems and processes that didn't just handle, a corporate organization. That's a franchise organization. So you're teaching franchisees and systems and processes that franchisees, and maybe even yourself, were you also doing training with franchisee employees?
Correct. So we were training franchisees. Franchisees, service managers, service advisors, a handful of technicians as well. But it was very heavily focused on processes and procedures. However, what we're able to incorporate, especially in any kind of service-based industry, as you guys know, is you got to have that personal connection. There's got to be that personal touch when you're serving people. And so we treated this experience as a relationship first, and the transaction is simply a byproduct of exceptional standard-setting service.
Right, and Christian Brothers is known for that. If I understand correctly, they're known for being very friendly, and especially in an industry that isn't always known for customer service.
That's right. It's especially in the automotive repair industry, trust is such a huge thing, and the moment we begin to lose trust, that's when really things begin to potentially fall to the wayside. And so, in order to connect with folks, we have to have that foundation of safety and trust, so that we can provide clarity and direction. And so we talk quite heavily about connection before content and how we can connect with people through authenticity, humility, and vulnerability. And then as long as we can fine tune the processes along the way, we focus on the relationship, we fine tune the processes, that should raise the level of service to a standard that is unlike any other.
Absolutely.
So I'd love to hear. So Josh, were you a part of creating the content for the training program that you were supplying? Okay, so it wasn't someone else developed it and you came in then and just carried the torch. You were a part of building it from scratch?
A little bit of both. So when I first joined the team almost a decade ago, there was already a training program that was very well received throughout the brand. And so I had an opportunity to walk into something that was already established and help create it and evolve it to something even better. And that was helpful for me in my young career because I had never been a part of something that was where I'm creating a program from scratch. Because it is definitely more challenging than one might think. And so when I walked into this opportunity, I walked into a proven process, a proven program that I was able to help grow and develop. But beyond that, I was able to use those skills and also use my creativity and innovation to create other programs. So by the time I left, I joined the team, and there was one program. When I left, there were 6 programs, and I had the pleasure of really being a heavy player in the creation of all 5 of the rest, or the other 5 programs.
So you're like, there's PTSD going on from when I started developing a training program for a couple of our brands. I did it from scratch, or at least what it felt like was from scratch.
It was from scratch, pretty much.
And what I think about now, like, oh my gosh, I would have done things so different if I was asked to do it again. And so anyways, part of the reason I asked is like, so what was it that you walked into a program that was already proven, it was, effective? You said you brought your own creativity and influence into it. What was it that you started to build upon to elevate that program?
One of the biggest, I don't know that I want to say changes, but I don't know that I don't want to say changes. I'll say this. One of the biggest initiatives that we pushed was, let's focus on the people first. When I began there, I was hired as a sales development trainer, and about 2 years into my career there at Christian Brothers, a change was made that allowed me the opportunity to lead that department all of a sudden. And so one of the biggest initiatives that I made almost immediately was, let's focus on the people. Let's focus on serving the people. Let's focus on the experience being one of service. So we even rebranded our department from the sales development department to the service development department. And then we changed the names of our titles from sales to service. I'm just a big believer in the fact that when you serve people, love people, take care of people, the transaction is a natural byproduct. So it's important to know how to do the sales. It's important to know the KPIs that drive sales. We know that we need to make a profit in order to stay in business, but let's focus on the people first, and then we can fine tune the processes along the way. So, that's one of the focuses that I was able to bring was, let's serve these attendees, these training attendees, the same way we're asking them to serve their guests.
Mm-hmm. So were you able to, in many ways, kind of pluck a lot of the stuff that you helped to develop thereafter at Christian Brother Automotive to what it is that you're providing your clients today?
To some degree. I mean, there's portions of the programs that I was able to create from scratch. It's my own content. It's my own delivery as well. I mean, the beauty in the way the department was laid out was, as I was bringing new team members on board, one of the first things I would express is, hey, look, you were hired for a reason. You are great at what you do. We need you on this team. And so you're empowered to create and innovate and try things. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, that's okay. We're still learning along the way. So bring your own flavor to the table, essentially. And so in doing so, by the time I left, there were 6 different programs. There were 7 different team members in the department, all of which were bringing their own flair, if you will, to the programs. So upon leaving, there were things that if it was something that I created, I definitely took out of CBA and was able to kind of further hone and tweak along the way. And just like anything, nothing changes if nothing changes. And so even what I'm doing today, I mean, I'm doing a training here in about a week or so. In fact, it's a week from today in the Houston area. And a year ago, this training looked significantly different than it does now. And we're always tweaking. We're always working on improving.
And it was new ago a year. It was new a year ago, right? This training.
It was new a year ago.
So what are some things you've learned? You just got to experience some of our podcasting technical difficulties, me finding had proper sound. But like, what are some things you learned in the previous year in how it's changed?
EJ, that is a fantastic question. So I think the number one thing that I really was able to hone in on, I think we've all heard the phrase, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that's something I'm a big believer in, and I have been for years. And so we talk about creating safety and trust so that we can provide clarity and direction. And one of the ways that we can provide clarity and direction is through effective communication and pairing that with what I call the roadmap of delegation. And so what I've been able to bring to a lot of my clients is this introduction and implementation of one-on-one meetings and what meetings really should look like. Anytime you hear the word meeting, you almost get your eyes glazed over and it's like, oh, here we go. There's there's this negative connotation about meetings, and there should be. There's so many meetings that could have been an email. There's so many meetings about the meeting, pre and post. There's this death by meeting approach. And for a lot of folks, we go to a meeting and we talk about a lot of things, but there's not a lot of action beyond that meeting. And so something I've been able to instill in a lot of my clients is really what a meeting should look like, a one-on-one and a team meeting, how to apply calls to action beyond that, how to follow up on the follow-through, how to communicate effectively, and how to delegate accordingly. And all of that is actually stuff that I wasn't really even focusing on heavily at Christian Brothers. But through my workings as a coach, and especially in a one-on-one capacity, this is where I'm seeing a lot of growth and a lot of value, a lot of benefit for my clients.
Huge need, no doubt. Huge. You mentioned Death by Meeting. Have you read that book? I read that book like 8 years ago. Have you ever heard of that book?
Is it Patrick Lencioni who wrote it?
I don't know. I don't remember.
So.
Okay. I don't think so. It's an older book, but it's called Death by Meeting. That's the name of the book.
Interesting.
It was
I haven't read it. But...
audio. It was audio for me. I'm big into audio books.
It is Patrick Lencioni.
It is? Okay.
Yeah.
You're
right.
Good memory.
Thanks. I haven't read. I'm a Lencioni fan, but I haven't read that one. But hey, it's a real thing for a reason.
Oh, no doubt. Another question I was going to ask you, talking about meetings and how you kind of found this as a unique selling proposition, a need out there that you can help. Have you studied any about the uniqueness of how Jeff Bezos ran meetings and how he would have people read these long memos as like for almost awkward silence the first 5 minutes? Have you ever read anything about this or anything?
So you're jogging my memory, EJ. If I recall, a few years ago, I remember reading something about how he sends out a bit of an agenda beforehand.
Yeah,
you read through it, and then you come in, and the meeting is significantly shorter because you've already gotten the cliff notes.
Yeah,
something like that.
But it's not just him sending that out ahead of time. It's not just him, and it's everybody in the meeting having their part and bringing and basically writing and memo's a bad word too, just like memos, meetings are bad words, memos are bad words too. But he basically makes every person in the meeting. And then he also points out that no meeting should be so big. There can't be any more people in a meeting than that I think it's 2 cheese pizzas or something like that can feed.
Okay.
It's something like that. It's something cheesy, no pun intended. Like
there you go.
If 2 people can, if 2 pizzas, however many that can feed, that's it.
I like that. I've never heard that, but I like it's almost like the 2 pizza rule, and we all know what the 2 pizza rule is now. So I like that. That's a good. I'm going to look up some of that some more.
So, Josh, could you share a little bit about your book, Leading a Legacy? Like, what is it about? Why did you author it? And maybe we can ask Billy if he can stop hammering.
Hey, man, Billy's got to do what he's got to do. Yeah, I'm happy to chat about it. So it's called Leading a Legacy, How to Live Today to Make an Impact for Tomorrow. And really what it's about is exactly what the subtitle is. What are we doing today to make an impact for tomorrow? At the end of our lives, we're going to be leaving some kind of legacy, one way or the other. And so the legacy that we lead today will determine the legacy that we leave tomorrow. So a lot of what I focus on, especially early on, is we begin with the leadership mindset. Something I share is that humans have up to 60,000 thoughts per day. And studies show that 80% of our thoughts are negative and 90% of our thoughts are repetitive. So it's no wonder why we regularly experience stress and worry and doubt and concern and fear. But we know that fear is simply false evidence appearing real. And we're always going to find evidence in the things that we believe. So what I help folks do in the book and my coaching is we recognize that our thoughts will dictate our feelings, and our feelings will dictate our actions, and our actions will dictate our legacy. So if we want to change our legacy, it begins with our thoughts. So how are we challenging the thoughts that we're having? One of the greatest mistakes that any of us can make is assuming all of our thoughts are true. And so what I help people do is I work on some mindset stuff first, then get into some leadership and some life stuff along the way. And one of the really the primary messages that I want anyone to take away from this book is the fact that you are a leader, and here's why. You are one of one. You have your own upbringing, your own life experiences that no one else has, and because of that, you have your own perspective that is not shared by anyone else in the entire world. So since you have your own perspective, you have the ability to be influential. Now, you can influence positively or negatively as well. So you can influence in good ways and bad ways. We have to remember that we are contagious. We can either infect or we can affect. So ask yourself, what are people catching from me? I want to make sure that I'm a positive influence in the lives of those around me. And if we can influence people around us, we can affect change. And anyone who's a change agent is a leader. So this book is really for anyone who is experiencing levels of imposter syndrome. Maybe they don't believe in themselves. Maybe they don't view themselves as a leader. Maybe they think that I need to have a certain title before I'm an actual leader. Maybe they're viewing themselves as a boss and not a leader, but they don't know the difference. And so being able to explain what a leader really is and how to serve people, how to lead people through servant leadership is kind of the overarching message of the entire book.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sold. One question, not last question by any means, but one question: is there an audio version?
Great question. Yeah, there is an audio version. So there's an audio. So you can find the book on Audible. And then I do want to share also something that I really am proud of is if you've heard of Damon West. Damon is probably most notable for the coffee bean story. And Damon served. He was sentenced to 65 years in prison, but didn't serve the entirety of that time. But he's been able to he got out of prison about a decade ago and has been traveling the country sharing the story of the coffee bean. And so Damon wrote my foreword for the book, and I even share the coffee bean story in the book as well.
Awesome. I look forward to doing the audio. I'm an audiobook guy. I'm not very good at. I have too much ADHD to sit down and read a book.
Well, EJ, if you're not tired of my voice yet, I want to let you know that I'm also the one who narrates the book too. So let me know what you think after you listen to it.
I prefer authors.
Okay.
I prefer authors to so that's good news. It'll be
awesome.
at least a semi-familiar voice.
There you go.
So I haven't really explained a whole lot of EJ and I's background and what it is that we do on the day-to-day, but one of the things that companies that EJ co-owns, and I work at is White Picket Team Management. So White Picket Team Management is a business management consulting firm, and one of the things that we do for some of our clients is offer a quarterly book review. So we'll pick a book and we will, as a team, those team members will read it, and then we'll gather together and discuss it. What did you learn? What did you agree with? What did you disagree with? What impacted you? So on and so forth. Anyways, I bring that up to say, EJ, we should probably consider this as one of the books that we
absolutely we should. No, and Josh, it's right in line with what we're doing with White Picket. Mm-hmm. And really what I'm focused on as we build the Pet Waste Millionaire brand, we're still very early on in that journey. Mm-hmm. But I love what you're talking about here. It's key that it all starts with mindset and self-talk.
Yeah.
And that's something that we are very well aligned with. I'm really looking forward to the book because the more that it's the amount of people out there that need to understand that, and it's not taught and talked about anywhere, at least in my experience. The world I came from, I was raised middle class and is functional as you get in a lot of ways, but I was not taught these things in my household and within my family, and so.
Sure.
The amount of people out there need to learn it, and it's unlimited. Mm-hmm. But it all comes down to mindset and self-talk. It does require action too, but yeah, it was really what's the word? It was inspiring to hear you talking about what you're doing, because it does fall very much so in line with what we're doing with White Picket and what we're doing with the Pet Waste Millionaire brand.
Thank you, EJ.
What we're striving for.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and I'm glad you shared that. You know, something that I want your listeners to know, and anyone who reads the book is, for years I didn't view myself as a leader, and so a lot of what I talk about comes from my own self doubt, my own lack of confidence and lack of belief, and imposter syndrome, which is one of the chapters in the book too. And so there's a familiarity that I have with the things I talk about because I've lived it and experienced it. And it really wasn't until, later in life where I started viewing things differently and started doing things differently. And I wish that I knew what I know now 20 years ago, because I know there was a lot of opportunities for me to impact and make a difference. And I probably didn't capture those because I didn't know how to.
Right.
So, in addition to this book, which is awesome, you have a podcast. Explain the podcast. When did it start? Who do you like to have on? What's the purpose of it? Go through that.
Sure. Well, I think I shared with you, my mission is to reach people and build leaders. And so the podcast was started about 11 months ago. I left my corporate job about 11 months ago, and I started it almost immediately. And I said, you know what? I was expecting to leave my corporate job and not have a whole lot of time and have plenty of time to do a lot of things I wanted to, not expecting to have, a bunch of clients almost overnight. And so I jumped into this podcast thing, and I think now I'm 28, 29 episodes in, and I would say maybe a third of the episodes are solo episodes. The other 2/3, I'll have guests on. But it's interesting. I don't really have like this ideal guest avatar. I want to find people who are interested in helping me reach people and build leaders. And if you have a story, which everyone does, I want to give you a platform to share it. I want to highlight and honor every guest who comes on and allow you the opportunity to reach as many people as possible. And, I don't have a large audience by any means, but I have a few listeners, and I'm excited to have anyone who is excited to jump on the podcast with me.
Yeah, that's awesome. We also have a few listeners, and we're on our way up.
Yeah.
But dude, I found so I was recently asked to go speak at a conference in the home services industry, and what was funny is that they asked me to speak on creating social media for 2024, like what's the strategy, what's the plan. And the person that spoke right before me was basically saying that it's not necessary. And so it was really fun to, try
Tough
to
follow.
angle that one. So I changed my approach kind of mid me starting to talk. And I'm actually like the direction that I ended up taking it. That I agree that in the home services industry, you don't need to have a social media account to make money, right? That's not a necessary thing. It's a wise thing, but it's not necessary. But if maybe we change our focus on building a social media strategy to let's focus on building a community, what if we
good.
focused on just building a community and something that is important to us, that's been impactful for us. So, okay, that's what we want to focus on, is building a community surrounded by, let's say, leadership. A podcast is such a great way to knock out two birds with one stone, talk to people, network, have connections, and relate to people, and film it, and then you can publish that in your social media, and you're on your way with some consistency, right? And so the podcasting has obviously been around for quite a while, but I think it's still in many ways new, and there's not, it's not like social media, right? And so I think that there's a lot of room for improvement with how podcasting can be done, but just in its roots, getting to connect and network with people and share stories, because like you said, everyone has their own story, their own perspective to bring to the table. So I wanted to ask, you're clearly very well spoken. Is that natural? Is that a skill that was learned over time?
Ben, you probably noticed I have the biggest smile on my face because no, it is not natural. So I take that as a huge compliment. So thank you for that. If you would have known me 10 years ago, right before I started with Christian Brothers, you would think, hey, you're not supposed to be doing what you're doing now. You're not supposed to be going and doing these keynote speeches and coaching people and training the way that you're doing. I don't know that I had a crippling fear of public speaking, but it was pretty close. I mean, I've heard John Maxwell say that people are more afraid of public speaking than death. So people would rather be in the grave than giving their eulogy, right? And so, but what happened was I was given an opportunity to speak in front of people and train people, and was well out of my comfort zone. But we talk about getting comfortable being uncomfortable in order to grow. We know that growth and comfort cannot coexist. And so it took years and years of practice and practice and practice. And I'm still practicing and practicing and practicing. It truly is a skill that needs to be practiced and honed and developed over time. But I do appreciate the compliment. It's something that took a lot of years of hard work. And the beauty in all of this is for me more confirmation that I am doing what I was called to do, because other opportunities are presenting themselves for me to go speak at different organizations. In July here of this year, I'll be doing a keynote at Texas A&M. And if you would have told me that even 3 months ago, I'd be like, nah, I'm not. I'm not ready. Like I don't think it's not going to happen. But again, I feel like God keeps on putting things in my path, and I'm just really enjoying the opportunity.
Yeah. You mentioned John Maxwell. What's your favorite John Maxwell book? He's one of my favorites.
Man. Is he? Okay. I feel like it's probably cliche for me to say the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. But I really think that probably is. That's the one I've read the most. And well, he has what, like 80 or 90
books? He has
like
now? 88. So you couldn't possibly. I mean, very few people probably read them all. I've definitely not even read half of them. But the ones I've read, the one that comes to mind, 21 Irrefutable Laws, obviously classic. 5 Levels of Leadership, I liked a lot.
Yeah. Okay.
I say listen because I listened to them all. Have you read that one?
I think I actually listened to that one. So I read and listen, but yeah. Okay. But I've read or listened to both of those, and I probably only read, I would say maybe 5 or 6, but those two are in the category.
Yeah, Ben and I went through his Maxwell leadership training 2.5 years ago, I think now. That was kind of awesome. The kickoff to a YouTube page and really starting to talk about building a following and a brand, a personal brand.
Well, something that you shared, Ben.
Stages of White Picket.
Okay, so 2.5 years ago?
It was when we started talking about doing what we're doing now with White Picket Team Management. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Well, something that you mentioned, Ben, I didn't want to glaze over it, but you said the powerful word, which is community. I think community is so important. I think when you surround yourself with your tribe, find people who are supporting, but also growing and holding you accountable in what you're doing. I think that's critical. And just 2 months ago, or almost 3 months ago, I created a Facebook community, a private leadership Facebook group, and we're now over 550 people in the group. And the idea is to do exactly what you discussed. You create a community of people, like-minded people, people who want to grow and develop together. And I think whether it's on social media or whether it's in your personal life, in real life, being able to surround yourself with people who are just constantly helping you stay at the standard that you are defining day after day, I think is key.
Josh, I'm a daily user of Facebook. It's my preferred platform. What's the group called?
Just about that.
Awesome. If you go to Limitless Leadership, or you look at the Limitless Leadership Facebook group, and you'll see it there.
Yeah, Limitless Leadership. Perfect.
Yes, sir. We're all going to get connected now.
Joining right now.
And I love it. I only have to answer 2 questions. I don't have to answer 10.
Yeah, I kept it pretty simple for you.
There it is.
Sorry, I'm doing it right now because I forget otherwise.
Hey, go for it. I'm going to go ahead and approve you right now. So we're all just working while we're podcasting.
I'm being a smart aleck on the where in your leadership journey would you like to be in 6 months from now? And I said on Mars.
Okay.
I don't know. That's what came to mind.
I'm going to play off of that one and say Pluto. Is that okay?
Are you the one? Yeah. So you're grassrooting this. Is this something you started yourself? You're actually reviewing. Are you on social media quite frequently?
I am, yeah, quite frequently. I would say daily. I'm posting something at least once a day, and this is something. So I started this at the end of January, and just trying to grow this community
Yeah,
and
that's
help as many
fantastic.
people as
How'd you
possible.
get the initial 500? Like, did you just get that from your social media groups in existing from just sharing on, or did you?
We hit over 500 about 2 weeks ago, and so we're growing. I would say about 30 people a week, and I think after the first, when I launched it, maybe after the first couple weeks, I was right around 150, almost 200, and it's just slowly and organically spread over the last couple months. So I'm really liking the organic growth of it right now.
That's awesome.
What contributed to the first 100? Would you say?
Just people in my network, people who are friends of mine, just sending out the invites and letting people know about it.
That's awesome. I had a question that it kind of popped up a little while ago. Someone said this to me a long time ago, that you find fulfillment in your life when you can combine your vocation and calling into one thing. So you talked about that with your pursuit as being an entrepreneur, doing the things that you love.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so many people that know that, that have the knowledge of, oh, yeah, that makes total sense. But taking the initial step, what advice would you give to someone who's like right there at the door, who knows what they want to do, but is afraid to take that first step?
Do it scared. Do it scared. I mean, it's one of those things where we always will find evidence in the things that we believe. And so if I'm going to say, you know what, I don't know that I'm ready. I don't know that I'm prepared. I don't know that now is the right time. I'm going to find evidence that supports all of those thoughts that I have. And we have to remember that when we take action, confidence and motivation tends to follow. We think it's the other way around. We think I have to be confident, I have to be motivated, then I can go. And I'm saying, no, take action. Just go, and you're going to gain confidence and motivation beyond that. So staying in the same vein of faith, this is like saying, hey, God, show me and I'll trust you. And he's saying, no, trust me and I'll show you. And this is where it's like, you know what, take action. Just do it. Just take that step and then take the next step and then take the next step. Too many of us are focused on the end in mind and not the steps that it takes in order to get here. And we get overwhelmed and we find all the reasons why we shouldn't take that step. So I'd say just do it scared.
Every bit of my experience in the last 20 years speaks exactly to that. Just do it scared. Do it before you're caught. Every bit of my experience tells me that is absolutely dead on.
Well, then EJ, you know that because it's so easy for me to say this, right? Well, hey, just do it scared. Just do it. All you got to do it. And it's like, well, hey, man, you're not me. Like, you're not me. And you're just telling me to go and do it. But we need to remember that the similarity between faith and fear is that they both believe in a future that hasn't happened yet. So just take that step and then exercise faith. Yeah. You can still do it scared and exercise faith, but just take that step. And man, it always worked. Like when you take the step, you look back and you're like, I don't regret that.
Yep. On my wrist, I have one tattoo on my wrist, and it's faith. It's in Greek, faith.
Okay. Yeah.
Hebrews 11:1. Hebrews 11:1 is faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And that's exactly what it is. I mean, you gotta have that faith. You can be scared and still have faith. You've got to work through the fear. And the fear it doesn't have to be what we perceive as fear. It could be just not acting, and you subconsciously you're fearful. Consciously, you may not be fearful at all, but that lack of action, that lack of being willing to make that commitment is oftentimes rooted in fear, and it's not even recognized as that.
100%. EJ, I was looking for a picture to show you on my phone. My wife just got that scripture tattooed on her arm last week.
Oh, wow.
Hebrews 11:1 right here.
Crazy.
And yeah,
I got that. Yeah, I got this one tattoo July 4th of when I was 21. I think that's 2006. Actually, about the time I incorporated my first business.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
So that's kind of been my life verse. I joke that's the only verse I know by heart. I don't know any others by heart.
That's
I'm
okay.
not very good at memorization.
That's all right. That's awesome.
That's awesome. So, Josh, I'd love to know, there's two pieces that I want to get at. Could you walk me through? Okay, so you just said so many great things, and I'm like, all right, I'm ready to sign up, right? So walk me through, what does it look like for someone to be a part of your coaching? And then in a minute, I'd like to get to, what does the future look like for your business and the impact that you want to have?
Thank you, Ben. So I do a 3-month coaching program, and I call it a program because what I want everyone to recognize is that change doesn't happen overnight, and we need to be consistent in the practice in order to make the progress. Practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes progress. We got to be consistent, though. And so I'm asking for a 3-month commitment. And what we do is we jump on a weekly Zoom call, and calls are scheduled for about an hour. And we have a running Google Doc that we also work off of. So I begin every call asking you, hey, Ben, what are some of your latest wins? I believe that what gets celebrated gets repeated. And as I shared earlier, we have all these thoughts that will dictate ultimately the legacy that we're going to lead. And that can also be interchangeable with the results that we're trying to achieve. Our thoughts dictate feelings, feelings dictate actions, actions dictate our results. And so if we're not achieving the results we want to achieve, let's go back to our thoughts. And most of our thoughts, as we shared, are negative. We can very easily identify the negative things happening in our life, the losses that we're experiencing in our life. But are we really capturing and celebrating the wins? What gets celebrated gets repeated. So let's get a win and let's start stacking those wins. We then walk through what last week's call to action was. Sometimes I give you a call to action, sometimes I don't. And then we typically talk about what you want to talk about on the call. Prior to every call, I ask you to complete a 2-question survey. They never change. It's always, number 1, did you complete last week's call to action? Yes or no. Number 2, what are the top 1 to 2 things we're going to be discussing on our next coaching call? So we'll walk through that. I think a common misconception for a lot of folks about coaching is I'm going to hire a coach and he or she is going to give me all the answers, all the life advice, everything I need in order to just go do great things. And something I'm really excited to share is that you already have the answers within you. My role as a coach is to help you discover them. It's help you discover that greatness that you already have inside of you. So I ask a lot of questions, I listen, and I model what listening empathetically looks like. I work on creating safety and trust so that I can provide clarity and direction. You can get perspective, and with perspective, the way that you view things drives the way that we do things. So I walk through a 3-phase process over the course of 3 months. Each phase is dependent upon the client. It's not a phase per month kind of thing. But the first phase is the discovery phase. This is where I spend some time asking you a lot about who you are. I'm asking you to share whatever you're willing to share with me about who Ben Gonzalez is and the things that occurred in your life that make you the person you are today. Born here, raised here. Here's some life experiences. Here's where I'm currently at, and here's where I want to go. Once I have a better understanding of who you are, why you think the way that you do, why you operate the way that you do, I then utilize that information to customize your second phase of the program, which is the action phase. In the action phase, we work heavily on some mindset stuff. We work on some self-leadership stuff. There are 5 areas I believe that we can level up in our life each and every day, which is spiritually, physically, emotionally, academically, and financially. And so I'm not an expert in any of those 5 things, but what I do is I help you become more, hyper aware of the 5 areas that you can be working on. And we work on mindset, leadership, and life. And then beyond that, we go into the third phase, which is the coaching phase, which is where I'm teaching you how to teach your team how to fish, as we said earlier, right? How to lead, how to coach, how to train, and how to manage. Those 4 things, leadership, coaching, training, and management, all 4 are necessary, but all 4 are done differently. And so that's the 3-phase process through the program. And then beyond that, if you see the value, see the benefit in the 3 months, we can keep on working together month after month. And I mentioned earlier, I'm blessed to have a full book of clients. As at the timing of this recording, we're in April, and my next opening is going to be in early June. And so there's a bit of about a 2-month wait list right now.
How'd you go from being full-time at Christian Brothers to doing this and really filling your schedule pretty quickly? You mentioned a few times. How'd you do that? What do you credit that with?
I credit that with the reputation that I was able to create within the brand. When I made the announcement that I was leaving, my phone started blowing up, and it was from a lot of Christian Brothers folks. It was from franchisees. It was from former training attendees. Yeah. And what I realized, I didn't know until that moment, EJ, that years ago, I planted the seed and I consistently watered the grass over the course of my time there. And I really reap the benefits when I left. And, it was never like anytime I connect with anyone, I mean, I genuinely love people. So it's not hard for me to want to get to know who Ben and EJ are. But over the course of time, I would see a training attendee who'd come in through the week in Houston, and we would develop a connection and a relationship. And I would touch base with that person. I was proactive with my communication. I would ask them about their family. I'd make sure I'd call them by name. In the book, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, we talk about how the sweetest sound to any person in any language is the sound of a person's name. So utilize their name, utilize their family members' names. And what I realized was years ago, I planted the seed, I watered the grass, and then when I left, people started calling and say, "Hey, what are you doing now?" I told them, and they said, "Okay, we'll hire you." And I'm like, "What?" They're like, "Yeah, we'll hire you." I'm like, "Okay." And then it went from there. And then since then, word of mouth has allowed me to get more clients, not just with Christian Brothers folks. Now, about half my clients now are Christian Brothers folks, but it started out as 100% were Christian Brothers folks.
Right.
So,
man, that's awesome. What's next? Like, do you want to grow your team? Do you want to author more books? What are you wanting to build into next? So
my ultimate vision for Limitless Leadership. So that's the company that I created, which is called Limitless Leadership LLC. What I envision is an umbrella, and underneath the umbrella there are a variety of different coaches, there are a variety of different trainers, and a variety of different speakers. So while I market myself as a leadership coach, I mentioned to you that I'm married to a licensed professional counselor. My wife is a mindset coach under the Limitless Leadership umbrella. My sister, who lives in Austin, is a fitness coach who works under the Limitless Leadership umbrella. Eventually, I'd like to bring on a finance coach and different trainers and different speakers. So if someone is looking for any of those three for their team, for their organization, for a convention, I would like to say that the Limitless Leadership name develops in a way where people can trust the name. It's a reputable brand, and they say, "Hey, you know what? This company probably has someone that I'm looking for. Let me reach out to them." And that's ultimately my vision for Limitless Leadership.
Mm-hmm. Man, that's awesome. So cool.
So, but more books, I'm sure, right? You're going to write. You want to do all. You want to, and maybe others writing under the brand as well.
Probably so. I mean, this is something that I could see. I could see another book coming out in the next 3 to 5 years. As I mentioned earlier, the greatest area that I've seen that we've been able to capture for clients is this combination of communication and delegation. And you're kind of linking in the one-on-ones and the right questions to ask during the one-on-ones and really how to navigate the one-on-ones. If anyone who's listening to this podcast is leading people and your team members don't feel like their voice is heard, their opinions matter, or their ideas are considered, then respectfully, you might be missing an opportunity in leadership. And so the coaching, the training, even the book will kind of dive into what this could look like for you and your organization.
Mm-hmm. That's so cool, dude. Well, listen, there's a lot more that I'd love to dive into. The technical difficulties struck our time down just a little bit. We do have to get rolling on here. We've got another podcast that we're about to get started on. But Josh, undoubtedly, I want to continue to stay connected. Like I mentioned before, the pursuit to build a community that doesn't just go away. That's something that our team is focused on. I'm heavily focused on. So I'd love to continue to stay connected in whatever way that makes sense. But dude, thank you so much for being a part of the conversation today. This was really great.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'd love to talk more about what we're doing with Shoreby and Scoop Soldiers as well. And get to know, like we said, build that community.
Yes, sir. Hey, thank you guys both so much. It was an honor to be on your show. Thank you for asking, and excited to grow this relationship.
Thank you, Josh. Appreciate you, sir.
Likewise.
Pleasure.